Chapter 34. At 5:25 a.m., the municipal parking garage was eerily silent, the pre-dawn darkness lending a ghostly quality to the concrete structure. Isabella leaned against a support pillar on the third level, dressed in nondescript clothing. Jeans, a dark hoodie, running shoes, her hair tucked up beneath a Braves baseball cap. The disguise wasn't elaborate, but sufficient for the brief exposure she would risk. The garage smelled of motor oil and the distinctive urban mustiness of spaces rarely touched by sunlight. The concrete was cold against her back, seeping through her hoodie with a persistent chill. Stray papers and cigarette butts littered the corners, evidence of human presence despite the current emptiness. Yellow fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sickly shadows and creating pools of dim illumination separated by deeper darkness. Every sense of hers was heightened. She noted the location of every security camera, most disabled by Sophia's tech intervention, and mentally mapped exit routes. The weight of a small recording device pressed against her ribs beneath the hoodie was a constant reminder of her purpose. She was also wearing a wire. She rechecked her watch. 2 minutes until the scheduled meeting time. The digital display glowed 5:28 in faint blue light. After she'd sent him select portions of the evidence, Chief Prosecutor Rodgers had agreed quickly to her terms. A private meeting, no security, no recording devices, after she'd sent him select portions of the evidence. Self-preservation was a powerful motivator, and Rodgers hoped to negotiate his way out of the noose tightening around his neck. Isabella's mind drifted briefly to the events of the past 2 days. The attack on the federal building had changed everything. Damon had survived, thankfully. He'd left the building minutes before the shooting began. But Prosecutor Douglas hadn't been so fortunate. With legitimate channels closed to them, Isabella's plan for a public evidence dump had proceeded, carefully excluding supernatural elements while thoroughly documenting the corruption and cover-ups. The media explosion was immediate and overwhelming. Every outlet, from local news to national papers, ran stories on the Atlanta conspiracy. Federal agencies had descended on the city in force, arresting lower-level officials and securing evidence. But the highest-ranking conspirators, including Rodgers, had gone to ground, protected by whatever remaining allies they had in the system or supernatural community. Which led to this moment, a dangerous gambit to extract a confession directly from the architect of Isabella's frame-up. She'd insisted on coming alone, overriding Mikhail's objections with the argument that Rodgers would quickly flee if he detected any supernatural presence. In reality, she knew Mikhail was positioned nearby, just beyond human detection range, but close enough to intervene if necessary. His reluctant acceptance of her plan had come with the caveat that he would be monitoring everything through enhanced sensors. A car engine echoed through the garage, the sound bouncing off concrete walls and pillars, growing louder as it climbed the ramps. It had the distinctive purr of an expensive engine, too well maintained to belong to an average commuter. Isabella tensed, her hand instinctively moving toward the small recording device hidden beneath her hoodie. Illegal for court purposes, but invaluable for leverage and media releases. The crisp click as she activated it was audible only to her, a small technological confirmation that history would be preserved regardless of the outcome of this meeting. The black sedan that appeared was Rodgers' vehicle. She recognized the vanity plate, a self-important Justice Won, that now seemed like bitter irony. The headlights swept across her position as the car turned into a parking space, momentarily blinding her before extinguishing. In the sudden darkness, the soft ticking of the cooling engine seemed unnaturally loud. The car was parked several spaces away, and a moment later, Chief Prosecutor Rodgers emerged. Isabella catalogued changes automatically. He had lost weight since she'd last seen him. His usually immaculate appearance degraded by stress. His expensive suit was rumpled, the grey fabric showing travel creases and a small coffee stain on the left lapel. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands revealed a slight tremor he tried to conceal by keeping them close to his body. Even from a distance, she could smell his cologne. The same scent he'd always worn, but now mixed with the sour notes of stress, sweat, and fear. "Santos," he said, eyes darting around the garage nervously, searching for hidden backup. His voice carried the controlled projection of a career courtroom attorney, but underlying tension betrayed his fear. The word echoed slightly in the concrete structure, returning as a ghostly repetition. "You have some nerve requesting this meeting after what you've done." Isabella pushed away from the pillar, maintaining a careful distance. Her shoes made a soft scuffing sound against the concrete as she positioned herself. "What have I done? That's rich coming from the man who tried to have me killed." She kept her voice level, emotionless. "Absurd accusations," he snapped. But his voice lacked conviction. A muscle twitched in his jaw, a tell she remembered from their years working together, a signal he was preparing to lie. The fluorescent light above him flickered, momentarily casting his face in shadow, before illuminating it again with sickly yellow. "You've manufactured evidence, conspired with criminals." "Save it for whatever defense attorney is unfortunate enough to represent you," Isabella interrupted coldly. Her voice cut through his rehearsed denials like a blade. "We both know what's on those audio recordings between you and the mayor." Rodgers swallowed visibly, Adam's apple bobbing in his throat. Fear flickered across his features before he regained composure. The sound of his expensive Italian loafers shifting on the concrete seemed unnaturally loud in the following silence. "If you're referring to the audio deepfake files being circulated by the media, they're not artificial," she cut him off again. The sharp click of her consonants echoed in the concrete structure. "As the FBI's forensic analysis will soon confirm, but that's not why I asked you here." "Then why?" He attempted to reclaim his authoritative demeanor, squaring his shoulders. The gesture was pure courtroom theater, a seasoned attorney preparing to make an argument. "To gloat." Isabella studied him. This man she had once respected, whose approval had meant everything to her early in her career. The harsh overhead lighting emphasized every new line in his face, indicating his desperation. His mentorship had shaped her early approach to prosecution, and his recommendations had advanced her career. The depth of his betrayal still stung, but it was overshadowed now by cold determination to hold him accountable for his actions. "I want to understand," she said simply, softening her tone slightly. "How someone who swore to uphold justice could conspire with murderers. How did you justify it to yourself?" A flicker of genuine emotion crossed his face. Shame, perhaps, or merely regret at being caught. It was quickly masked by professional neutrality, but Isabella had seen it. The first crack in his facade. A distant water drip marked the silence between them, each drop an audible measurement of passing time. You have no idea the pressures, the complexities of managing a city like Atlanta, he replied, a defensive note entering his voice. Enlighten me, she challenged, taking a calculated half-step closer, maintaining eye contact and creating a bubble of forced confidence between them. Rodgers paced a few steps. The movement betrayed his discomfort, more than his words. It started small, looking the other way on certain investigations that might disturb powerful interests. Then favors, arrangements, mutual protection. He stopped and ran a hand through his thinning hair. The fluorescent light caught the perspiration on his forehead. By the time Aldrich became involved, I was already compromised. Victor Aldrich, Isabella said carefully, watching his reaction closely. The Mayo Collier's enforcer. She needed to guide the conversation towards specific admissions without revealing how much she knew about the supernatural elements. The name seemed to hang between them, laden with unspoken implications. Rodgers barked a humorless laugh, the sound sharp and brittle in the concrete space. Enforcer. That's one way to put it. His expression darkened, genuine fear flickering across his features momentarily. He was a monster, but a useful one. Until he wasn't. Until he started killing for pleasure. Isabella made the statement flat, factual, concealing her satisfaction at his first direct admission. We couldn't control him anymore, Rodgers admitted, shoulders slumping slightly. He had too much on all of us. And then he started the ritual killings, drawing attention we couldn't afford. So you decided to frame Mikhail Volkov, Isabella pressed, moving the conversation forward. Keep the subject talking, maintain momentum, never allow time for reconsideration of admissions. A pipe clanged somewhere overhead, and the sudden sound made Rodgers flinch visibly. That was Collier's idea, Rodgers said dismissively, hands gesturing in a distancing motion that betrayed his desire to shift blame. His signet ring caught the light as he moved, a flash of gold that had once symbolized authority, now looking gaudy and out of place. Volkov was becoming too influential, too independent, controlling too much prime real estate the mayor's donors wanted. 2 birds, 1 stone. Eliminate Aldrich's mess and remove a troublesome rival. Aldrich was all too happy to help cause trouble for his nephew. And when I started investigating too closely, you were always too persistent for your good, Santos, Rodgers said, a hint of his old tutorial tone emerging. The familiarity was jarring after everything that had happened, like a grotesque parody of their former relationship. I tried to warn you off, assigned you to other cases, but you wouldn't let it go. So you decided I needed to be eliminated as well, she stated flatly, carefully controlling her expression to hide the chill that ran through her at discussing her own planned murder. He had the decency to look uncomfortable, gaze dropping briefly to the concrete floor. The gesture was small but significant, the first sign of genuine shame rather than merely regret at being caught. His shoe scuffed against the floor, creating a small semicircle in the dust. That wasn't my call initially. Collier insisted. Said you were getting too close to certain aspects of the operation. A shadow crossed his face. I argued against it, for what it's worth. Not one bit, Isabella replied coldly, allowing a hint of her genuine anger to surface. Especially since you ultimately ordered it anyway. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct, Rodgers said. The overhead light cast his face in harsh angles. emphasizing the hollows beneath his cheekbones, where stress had eaten away at his once robust appearance. Something you should understand, given your current situation. Isabella took a calculated step closer, using physical proximity to increase pressure. Is that why you had Douglas killed? Self-preservation? Shock registered on Rodgers' face, his composure cracking further. The color drained from his face so thoroughly that the bluish veins at his temples became visible beneath the skin. I had nothing to do with that attack. That was Collier's private security team. He went completely off the reservation after your evidence started leaking. I've been trying to distance myself by cooperating with the remaining corrupt officials to eliminate witnesses and destroy evidence, Isabella finished for him. She took another step closer, continuing to crowd his space. The concrete beneath her feet felt solid and grounding, a counterpoint to their conversation's shifting, uncertain ground. Your fingerprints are all over the obstruction efforts, Rodgers. You don't understand the forces at work here, he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. A drop of sweat ran down his temple, tracing the line of a bulging vein. Collier has connections you can't imagine. People who can make anyone disappear permanently. And yet, here I am, Isabella said evenly, allowing a hint of satisfaction into her tone. She gestured to herself with a sweep of her hand. Despite your best efforts. Rodgers' expression shifted, calculation replacing fear. The change was subtle but unmistakable to Isabella, who had watched him work juries for years. He was recalibrating, seeking a different approach, looking for leverage. We could still resolve this. You know, I have insurance, evidence the mayor doesn't know about, information that could protect both of us. I'm not interested in deals, Isabella replied. Don't be naive, he snapped. His voice rose slightly, echoing in the concrete structure. The sudden increase in volume startled a pigeon roosting in the rafters, sending it fluttering to another perch with a frantic beating of wings. You've always been idealistic to a fault. The system doesn't work the way you think it does. There are compromises, arrangements. Corruption, she interrupted sharply. The word seemed to hang between them, heavy with accusation. Call it what it is. Call it pragmatism, he countered. The world isn't black and white, Santos. You know that. Otherwise you wouldn't be working with someone like Volkov. Isabella tensed. The sudden mention of Mikhail sent a jolt through her system, adrenaline surging with the potential threat to their secrets. What do you mean? Her voice remained steady, but her hand unconsciously moved closer to the concealed recording device, ready to stop it if necessary. A thin smile spread across Rodgers' face, the expression of an attorney who's found an unexpected advantage during cross-examination. You think we didn't investigate him thoroughly before choosing him as our scapegoat? There are irregularities in his background that defy explanation. Properties held by his family for generations with no clear record of acquisition. Incidents around his properties that were covered up too efficiently. He leaned forward slightly, invading her space as she had invaded his. His cologne and sweat became overwhelming at this proximity, assaulting her senses. What do you really know about the man you're protecting? Isabella maintained her neutral expression with effort. Rodgers was fishing, she realized, trying to determine how much she knew about the supernatural aspects of the case. His questions contained no specific references to werewolves, only suspicious circumstances that could have multiple explanations. The garage suddenly seemed colder, the air between them charged with unspoken knowledge and suspicion. "I know he was innocent of the murders you tried to pin on him," she replied carefully, selecting words with precision. "That's all that matters in terms of justice." She deliberately emphasized the word justice, throwing his corruption into sharper contrast. Rodgers studied her face, eyes narrowing slightly as he searched for tells. The harsh lighting deepened the lines around his mouth, aging him further. "Justice," he repeated, the word carrying a weight of cynicism. "You still believe in that, even after everything you've seen?" "The system is designed to protect power, Santos, not dispense justice. I thought you would have learned that by now." "I've learned that people like you corrupt the system," Isabella countered, refusing to yield ethical ground. "But that doesn't mean justice is impossible." He shook his head, as if disappointed in a promising student who had failed to grasp an essential lesson. His thinning hair caught the light, revealing more grey than she remembered. "So righteous, even now." His tone shifted, becoming almost conversational, the prosecutor transitioning to summation. "What exactly do you hope to accomplish here today? You already have your evidence. The media is having a feeding frenzy. My career is over." "I wanted to look you in the eye," Isabella said honestly, the truth serving her purpose better than deception. "I wanted to understand how someone I once wanted to be just like could betray everything he claimed to stand for." Her words carried genuine disappointment beneath the professional assessment, a personal note she rarely allowed herself. "Ah," Rodgers nodded slowly, recognition dawning. "Closure. I suppose that's understandable." He straightened his jacket reflexively. The fabric rustled softly, the sound small but distinct in the quiet garage. "Well, you have it now. I suggest you use whatever time before the mayor's friends find you to get as far from Atlanta as possible." "Is that a threat?" she asked, tension coiling through her body. "Just practical advice from someone who knows how these things work," he replied with a shrug that failed to convey the nonchalance he intended. His eyes betrayed his tension, continually scanning their surroundings. A water drop fell from a pipe overhead, landing with an audible plunk that made him jump. Collier still has resources, connections. He won't stop until everyone who could testify against him is silenced. "Including you?" Rodgers' composed facade cracked slightly, genuine fear flashing across his features momentarily. His pupils dilated. "I've taken precautions." "Not enough," she replied, glancing meaningfully at the surroundings. Her gesture encompassed the empty garage, the isolation, and the vulnerability of their position. "You came alone to a deserted parking garage to meet someone you helped frame for murder. Not exactly the actions of a man who fully understands his situation." "I came because you claim to have evidence that could exonerate me," Rodgers snapped, irritation breaking through his controlled demeanor. "Evidence that the mayor was the one who ordered Douglas' killing, and that I opposed it." Isabella allowed a small, cold smile, satisfaction at his inadvertent confirmation warming her voice. "And you just confirmed that Mayor Collier ordered the assassination of a federal official, on record." She tapped her hoodie, where the recording device was hidden, the gesture deliberate, provocative. The fabric made a soft thumping sound beneath her fingers. Rodgers' face drained of color, realization dawning with visible horror. The sickly fluorescent light made him appear almost ghostly, emphasizing the hollow quality his fear gave him. "You're recording this? That's illegal. No court would—" "Maybe not for prosecution," she agreed. "But for the media, for federal investigators building a case. Priceless corroboration from the Chief Prosecutor himself." Fury replaced shock on his face, professional composure shattering completely. His breath came faster, creating small clouds in the cool garage air. "You manipulative bitch. You won't get away with this. When the mayor finds out..." "He will be too busy saving himself to worry about you," Isabella interrupted. "That's how it works with conspiracies, isn't it? Everyone eventually turns on each other." She took a deliberate step backward, maintaining awareness of her surroundings. The concrete felt solid beneath her feet, and each footfall was a precise distance measurement. "I'd be concerned about who else might be listening to this conversation right now." Rodgers' eyes darted around the garage, newly paranoid. Isabella recognized the expression of a man suddenly questioning everything. His gaze jumped from shadow to shadow, the sudden fear making his movements jerky and unpredictable. "What do you mean?" "Who else is here?" Isabella merely smiled, letting the question hang unanswered, psychological pressure increasing with silence. The distant drip of water marked time between them, each drop an audible measurement of his growing anxiety. "Goodbye, Rodgers. I'd say it's been a pleasure, but we both know better than that." She began backing away, maintaining visual contact with the increasingly agitated attorney. Her footsteps echoed softly in the concrete structure, marking her deliberate retreat. "This isn't over, Santos," he called after her, his voice echoing. His legal composure had abandoned him completely, leaving him with raw fear and anger. His words bounced off the walls, creating a chorus of threats around her. "You have no idea what forces you're dealing with." Isabella reached the stairwell entrance, her hand finding the door handle while her eyes fixed on Rodgers. The cool metal felt reassuring beneath her fingers, the weight of the fire door substantial. "Neither do you." As she pulled the door open, Rodgers suddenly moved toward his jacket. Isabella tensed, prepared to duck behind the door for cover. The heavy fire door would stop most bullets. Instead of a gun, however, he withdrew his phone with shaking hands. The small device gleamed in the harsh lighting, his fingers trembling visibly as he punched in a number. "Signal!" He barked into it, his voice cracking with urgency. "Code red. Santos location confirmed. Municipal garage, 3rd level. Send all units, including aerial, immediately." Isabella felt a spike of cold terror, though she kept her expression neutral through sheer force of will. They'd anticipated Rodgers might try something like this, but not so quickly. The timeline for her extraction had just collapsed. The stairwell behind her gaped like a concrete throat, offering either escape or a potential ambush. "You think I'd come alone?" he said, a triumphant edge in his voice. His posture straightened, courthouse authority momentarily reasserting itself. "My security team has been on standby. They'll be here in moments." Isabella ducked into the stairwell, her heart hammering. The stairwell smelled of concrete dust and ancient cigarettes, and the acoustics amplified her race down the stairs into urgent percussion. The plan had accounted for possible interruptions, but timing was now critical. She descended 2 flights quickly, pushed through a service door, and sprinted down a maintenance corridor, following the primary route they'd established during planning. Behind her, she heard the screech of tires as vehicles entered the garage, voices shouting commands. The sounds echoed through the ventilation system, distorted but unmistakable. She reached a utility doorway, yanked it open, and slipped inside what appeared to be an electrical closet. Breathing controlled but rapid. The small space smelled of dust and cleaning supplies. It was cramped with a rolling mop, bucket, and several recycling bins. A figure detached from the shadows. Mikhail's eyes gleamed slightly in the darkness, reflecting minimal light. His expression remained calm, but she recognized the tension in his stance. The predator ready to strike if necessary. His familiar scent provided immediate comfort amid danger. They responded faster than expected, she said breathlessly, automatically keeping her voice low, despite the solid door between them and the pursuers. Her heart still pounded, but the panic eased with his presence, and professional calm reasserted itself. "I heard," he replied. No accusation colored his tone, just an acknowledgement of changed circumstances. The slight tension around his eyes was the only indication of his concern. "Katerina is in a position to create a diversion. Did you get what we needed?" Isabella patted the recording device, satisfaction briefly overriding concern. She could feel the recorder vibrate through her clothing, evidence of its continuous operation. Full confession of the conspiracy. Confirmation that the mayor ordered the federal prosecutor's assassination. An admission that they targeted you for your property holdings. "Thorough as always," he murmured. From above, they heard the sounds of Rodgers' security team searching the stairwells. Boots on concrete, doors being slammed open. The noise filtered through the ventilation system, muffled, but clear enough to track their progress. "Time to disappear," Mikhail said, moving toward what appeared to be a solid wall at the back of the utility closet. He pressed against a specific panel, revealing a narrow passage beyond. The hidden door swung inward silently, evidence of well-maintained hinges and careful planning. "This connects to the old maintenance tunnels. They run beneath most of downtown." "I have no idea how you keep these all straight," Isabella said, shaking her head. Her appreciation for their thoroughness grew with each discovery of their infrastructure. "The pack has been preparing escape routes for generations," Mikhail said as they slipped into the passage. "Part of remaining undiscovered is having ways to exit high-stakes situations unnoticed." Once the panel closed behind them, he produced a small tactical light. The tunnel stretched ahead, damp and claustrophobic, but mercifully free of pursuers. The air felt cooler here, heavy with moisture and the earthy scent of underground spaces. Their footsteps echoed softly against ancient brick, the sound deadened by years of accumulated grime. "Rodgers knows what you are," Isabella whispered as they moved swiftly through the cramped space. Mikhail's expression remained neutral, but she noticed a slight tensing of his shoulders. "Inevitable with centuries of history," he replied, voice matter-of-fact despite the implications. "We maintain human documentation, but determined investigators will find inconsistencies, like you did." "Do you think he suspects how many of your people are here in Atlanta?" She ducked beneath a low-hanging pipe, concern for the pack's secrecy momentarily overshadowing personal danger. The pipe dripped slowly, each drop landing with a hollow plinking sound that marked their passage. "We do our best to keep tabs on what civil servants," Mikhail replied. his movements fluid, even in the confined space. His shadow stretched before them, elongated and more primal against the ancient brick. But humans rarely leap to werewolves as their first explanation. He likely thinks I'm involved in organized crime or some other human conspiracy. A werewolf mobster? Isabella could not help but be amused. Mikhail gave her a pointed look. Don't joke, it's happened. Alphas have done whatever it took to protect their pack, me included. They reached a junction where the tunnel widened slightly, allowing them to stand more comfortably. Mikhail paused, head tilted in that distinctive way that told Isabella he was listening. Clear for now, he announced after a moment, relaxing fractionally. But they'll have the streets above monitored. We should wait for Katerina's diversion before surfacing. Isabella leaned against the damp wall, residual adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The brick felt cool against her back, slightly slimy with decades of accumulated moisture. I hope it was worth the risk, she said. Thoughts returning to the recorded confession and its potential impact. Getting Rodgers on record admitting to the conspiracy? Absolutely. Mikhail studied her face in the dim light, his enhanced vision missing nothing of her expression. It sounds like you handled him perfectly. He revealed more than he intended. He's desperate, Isabella observed. They all are. The alliance between the conspirators is fracturing like we anticipated. Her voice echoed slightly in the junction, creating a phantom agreement to her own words. Predators turning on each other when cornered, Mikhail agreed, a hint of grim satisfaction in his voice. A familiar pattern. A soft, rhythmic tapping echoed through the tunnel. 3 quick taps, pause, 2 more. The sound carried clearly in the enclosed space, each tap distinct and purposeful. Mikhail's posture shifted to readiness, muscles tensing visibly even in the dim light. Katerina's signal, he explained, recognizing Isabella's questioning look. The diversion is about to begin. Within moments, they heard it. The distant wail of multiple sirens, shouts from above, and the crackle of emergency radio traffic. The sounds filtered down through ventilation shafts and access points, muffled but distinct, creating a chaotic symphony of urgency. Multiple vehicles moved overhead, the vibration of their engines creating a subtle tremor in the tunnel. What did she do? Isabella asked, both impressed and slightly alarmed by the evident scale of the distraction. The distant chaos created an eerie soundscape in the underground passage, distorted and ghostly. A rare smile crossed Mikhail's face, a flash of appreciation for his second's effectiveness. Set off fire alarms in 3 surrounding buildings simultaneously. Emergency protocols will force evacuation, pulling security resources from searching for us. Creating chaos to disappear within. Isabella nodded appreciatively, recognizing the strategic elegance of the approach. No actual damage, no real danger, but maximum disruption. Effective. An old pack tactic, Mikhail replied, a hint of pride in his heritage evident in his tone. He gestured forward with characteristic economy of movement. Now, we move. They continued through the tunnel system, navigating a complex network that Isabella tried to memorize without success. The passages twisted and turned seemingly randomly, some bricked in ancient patterns, others reinforced with modern materials. After at least a mile of twisting passages, they reached a vertical shaft with metal rungs embedded in the wall. This leads to an access point 4 blocks from the garage, Mikhail explained, gesturing for Isabella to climb ahead. His protective instinct remained evident in his positioning, keeping himself between her and potential pursuit. The metal rungs felt cold and slightly slippery beneath her hands, decades of moisture creating a patina that caught the light. Isabella ascended carefully, her muscles protesting the exertion after the tension and adrenaline of the early morning confrontation. Each rung creaked slightly under her weight, the sound amplified in the vertical shaft. At the top, a heavy circular cover blocked their exit. "How do we know it's safe?" she whispered back down to Mikhail, instinctive caution reasserting itself. Her fingers gripped the metal rungs tightly, knuckles whitening with tension. The shaft smelled distinctly different from the horizontal tunnels. Fresher somehow, with hints of street-level scents filtering down. "Katerina will have left a signal," he replied, handing up his light. "Check the underside of the lid. 3 chalk marks means all clear. 2 means proceed with caution. No marks mean find another exit." Isabella turned the light on the metal cover until she found 3 distinct chalk lines. The stark white marks contrasted with the lid cover's dark bronze. The pack's attention to procedural detail impressed her. "All clear," she confirmed, relieved. "Good. Push up and to your left. It's counterweighted." Following his instructions, Isabella pushed against the cover, which moved more easily than its apparent weight would suggest. She emerged in what appeared to be a large storage room filled with old file boxes and office supplies. "Your pack really likes storage closets, don't they?" she noted. Mikhail grunted as he followed swiftly, replacing the cover with barely a sound. The metal disc settled into place with a soft click, indistinguishable from the surrounding floor once closed. He quickly oriented himself, inhaling deeply to assess their surroundings. "Service entrance is through there." He indicated a door on the far wall. "It should lead to an alley." The alley beyond was narrow and thankfully deserted, early morning light barely penetrating between the buildings. The sun was beginning to rise, sending long shadows down the narrow street. The air felt startlingly fresh after the underground tunnels, carrying the mixed sense of an awakening city. Exhaust fumes and cooking smells from early opening restaurants. A nondescript sedan idled halfway down its length, deliberately positioned for quick exit in either direction. Another detail of planning that impressed Isabella. As they approached, the driver's window lowered to reveal Katerina's watchful face. Her green eyes scanned them, assessing for injury or distress. Her hands remained at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, ready for immediate action. The engine's quiet purr was barely audible, and it was a well-maintained vehicle chosen for reliability rather than flash. "Any complications?" she asked as they slid into the back seat, her attention already returning to the mirrors, where she checked for followers with practiced vigilance. Isabella guessed that the car's interior smelled of leather and something faintly herbal, most likely something that helped mask supernatural scents. "None we couldn't handle," Mikhail replied, the subtle shift in his posture signaling a release of immediate tension. His body language changed subtly in Katerina's presence, and the alpha to second relationship was evident in minute adjustments of position and tone. "The recording?" Katerina asked as she smoothly turned away from the parking garage. Isabella patted her pocket, where she'd secured the device during their escape. The small recorder felt warm through the fabric, its electronic heart still faithfully preserving evidence. Got it. Rodgers confirmed the mayor ordered Douglas's assassination and admitted to the conspiracy against both of us and Mikhail. Katerina continued driving with careful precision to avoid attracting attention. There was no excessive speed, no sharp turns, nothing to distinguish them from normal morning commuters. The early morning streets were beginning to fill with delivery trucks and early workers, providing proper cover for their movement. Harper is coordinating with the FBI team that Damon contacted. They're standing by to receive the new evidence. How did you manage that? Isabella asked, surprised by this development. Her eyebrows rose. The car's smooth movement felt luxuriously normal after the tension of the tunnels, the upholstery soft beneath her hands. I thought all our federal channels were compromised after the attack. Not all, Katerina replied, eyes never leaving the road. The morning sunlight caught her profile, emphasizing the predatory lines of her features. Harper had an old partner who transferred to the bureau years ago. It took some convincing, but they're on board now, especially after the public evidence dump created national pressure. Isabella felt a weight lift from her shoulders, tension she hadn't fully acknowledged, releasing slightly. After days of operating outside the system, they finally had legitimate allies again. She watched the city pass by through tinted windows, buildings catching the early morning light, streets gradually filling with regular activity. This world had continued turning despite her upheaval. And Damon? She asked. Secure for now at the secondary sanctuary, Katerina assured her, the slightest softening of her usually clipped tone, suggesting she recognized the emotional importance of the question. The morning light softened her typically harsh features, revealing a fleeting glimpse of empathy. Along with the remaining pack members who needed somewhere safe after we needed to evacuate the Warren. He's saying he needs to return to work soon, however, if he's not going to be missed. Isabella leaned back against the seat, allowing herself a moment of cautious optimism. They had Rodgers' confession. Federal authorities were now willing to work with them. The conspiracy was fracturing under pressure. For the first time since the siege at the compound, it felt like they might succeed. The car's rhythmic movement provided a momentary haven amid chaos. What's our next step? She asked, switching between Mikhail and his second. Get this recording to Harper's FBI contact, Mikhail replied, his voice taking on the measured clarity he used when outlining pack operations. The morning light caught his profile, emphasizing the strong line of his jaw and the intensity of his focus. Then prepare for your public statement. The public statement had been Isabella's idea, a formal video to be released to media outlets once sufficient evidence had been secured, explaining her actions and laying out the conspiracy for public consumption. It would be carefully crafted to expose the human corruption while protecting the supernatural elements of the case. The strategy had been developed during their late-night planning sessions, the perfect synthesis of legal and supernatural considerations. And the mayor? She pressed, unwilling to leave loose ends. Her fingers tapped lightly against her thigh, restless energy returning as immediate danger receded. Not for long, Katerina said with confident finality. Her hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel, the only visible sign of her eagerness for that particular hunt. The morning light caught her knuckles, highlighting their whiteness against the dark leather. Scouts working for us, have narrowed his location to 3 possibilities. We'll have him within 24 hours. Isabella glanced at Mikhail, seeking confirmation of this surprisingly definitive statement. He nodded, Alpha's assurance evident in the gesture. The pack has been tracking him since he fled. He is still in Atlanta, hiding with allies, but running out of options. As they drove through the city, Isabella watched the familiar skyline with new eyes. Atlanta had been her home for years, where she'd built her career and identity. Now it felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. The visible city she'd always known overlaid with the invisible network of supernatural territories and sanctuaries she'd discovered. Every alley potentially concealed a passage. Every ordinary building might hide extraordinary secrets. The double vision was disorienting but oddly exhilarating. Whatever happened next, she knew with absolute certainty that she could never return to seeing the world as she had before. Mikhail's hand found hers in the darkness of the back seat, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture both protective and seeking connection. The warmth of his skin against hers brought unexpected comfort, a grounding presence amid uncertainty. "We're close," he said quietly. And Isabella understood he meant more than just their proximity to their destination. The morning light caught his eyes, briefly turning them to liquid amber, the wolf visible beneath the man. "Yes," she agreed, tightening her grip slightly, feeling the controlled strength in his hand. "We are